The fact is, disasters happen, and they put lots of businesses out of business. And what I want to talk about today is some of the things that we can do to prepare for the worst. We don't like thinking about the worst, but you know what? A little preparation goes a long way. And if you think about it, there's all sorts of ways that your business could get interrupted from a disaster. It could be a man-made disaster, like a riot. More often, it's a natural disaster like an earthquake or a flood, a fire, or what about even a theft, or in the case of 9/11, terrorism. Now, we don't like to think about those things, but these things do happen. So what can you do to prepare for them? And more importantly, what can you do to prepare that your business will stay in business should something like this happen to you? Because fully 1/3 of all businesses who suffer some kind of disaster end up out of business, and we don't want to be that 1/3. The first thing you can do is back up your systems, back up your computers. Now, we all know we're supposed to back up our computers regularly, and some of us even do it. Many people do not do it. But even backing up may not be good enough, because if you're doing just a physical backup on your physical location and you get a flood or you get a fire, that backup really isn't going to do you a whole lot of good. So what's better is to do a remote backup, a daily remote backup with a service like Symantec. I do some work with Symantec. They have a great online backup service, but there's all sorts of different ones out there that you can choose from. But having a remote backup will ensure that at least all of your computer data is protected should something happen to your physical store. The second thing you want to think about having is a backup power system. I heard a story about the Great Blackout back east about 10 years ago, and there was an ice cream store, and the ice cream store had thought ahead and had bought a backup generator system so that when the power went out, it was out for 12, 24 hours, something like that, the ice cream store's assets didn't melt. Well, that's the kind of idea we all want to think about, having a generator to back up our power should we need it. And if you have an office, maybe you think, well, I don't really need a generator, and maybe you don't. But what you do need is something called a UPS. That's an uninterrupted power supply system. It's kind of a giant battery, and it goes on when the power goes out so that you can shut down all of your computers properly. Because if the power goes out and you don't have a UPS, bang, you lose all your data at that moment. So a UPS is another backup power system that really works for many small businesses and offices. Third, you want a system in place to keep your business running if your business gets interrupted. So that means having a list of suppliers and vendors and customers off-site. It means having a phone tree or an email tree so people can coordinate with each other. It means having a policy and system in place so everyone knows what they're supposed to do if they can't get into the office, into the store. And then even practicing some of these things so that everyone knows what to do in the case of an emergency so that you can keep your business running. Because the worst thing that can happen is all of a sudden you get hit by a flood, you have a hurricane, something happens, and you have no system for keeping things going. So the system is critical. Then the fourth thing that the experts say you want to have is an emergency kit. So you might want to have things like duct tape in there, bandages, a first aid kit, and definitely water. Typically what they say is you want to have enough supplies for 3 days in case you get stuck at the office, stuck at the store for a couple of days. 3 days of worth of supplies can certainly make life easier for a lot of people. So that's the idea. Having insurance isn't enough. If you put together these systems with some backup power, an emergency kit, these kind of things in place, then you can be assured that if the worst happens, which we don't want to happen, but if it does, you'll be prepared to not only survive, but actually keep your business going. And that's really what we want.